This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter for MacVoices viewers and listeners. Visit MacVoices.com, look for the blue box in our sidebar, and subscribe. Folks, this is MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. I'm happy to have you back with me. I'm also very happy to welcome back Greg Scown of Smile to talk about the brand new TextExpander Touch 3. Greg, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Chuck, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
So we should say right up front that we're recording this a little bit early, and I'll let you talk about where TextExpander Touch 3 is in the process before we get into the real details.
Okay, sure. So we submitted TextExpander Touch 3 to the App Store on last Thursday, and it entered the in-review state pretty promptly, and so now we're waiting for approval. If we're lucky and it gets approved before Wednesday, then it should be available concurrently with iOS 8. If not, if there's something we have to correct or deal with, then it could be available after, and the process is a fair bit beyond our control at this point, but we're hopeful and we're excited.
Right, and just to be clear, that's the Thursday before the week of the iOS 8 launch, and we're recording this on the Monday before the Wednesday of the iOS 8 launch. So hopefully it'll be out there as iOS 8 rolls out. And I don't know, Greg, that to me would seem really perfect in so many ways, simply because you all have done so much to support all the different versions of the iOS, and I'm guessing that this may support some of the new features as well.
Sure. Well, so the big new thing in TextExpander Touch 3 is a custom keyboard. And so custom keyboards are new to iOS 8 itself and were introduced at the developer conference in early June. And we've been working since then pretty hard to produce a custom keyboard that allows you to enter text, and while entering text to be able to expand your abbreviations into snippets. So for those who aren't familiar with TextExpander, it's an app that lets you define short abbreviations that expand into longer pieces of text. My prototypical example snippet is capital T small x, which I always use for TextExpander. I never actually type TextExpander out in full. And you can do considerably more than that. You can use boilerplate for customer support replies or for setting up podcast interviews, things like that.
Okay, there's so many things here. I want to step back for a second though and talk about the history of TextExpander Touch. You all have kind of been up and down with this product. You've pulled more than one rabbit out of the hat to make it work under the old rules. Now we have new rules in iOS 8. Does this make that rabbit easier to skin?
The new rules are good rules, and we're really happy with them because there's now an explicit way to do things that I don't know. Maybe we have had stretched the definitions of for doing in the past. So at the outset, we stored our data in a persistent pasteboard. These were a way in which you could share data amongst apps. And apparently there were some bad actors on the App Store who used these to track user behavior, and Apple is very much opposed to that. And so with the advent of iOS 7, they cut that off entirely, with unfortunately not a lot of notice. And so that was a bit of a challenge for us. We then decided that we would try storing the data in a note of a reminder, because reminders are something that's shared across the board. And I think we could say that the app review board politely expressed their desire that we not do that. And so we worked out using an X callback URL, which is sort of this inter-process communication thing where you flip from one app to the other in order to get data. And so that's what we're doing right now. But we will be relieved of the ability of the need to do that in iOS 8, and we're really excited about that because the TextExpander can use an app group and share data with its own keyboard. For third-party apps which implement the SDK, they'll still continue to do the X callback URL, and that's actually working out really well for everybody. So much to our delight, that change turned out to be a positive one. And so all around, we're really excited.
So this means that TextExpander will be available to me in any app that I use if I'm using the TextExpander keyboard?
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So up to and including Apple's own system apps. So one of the things that we thought would be highly unlikely is that Apple would adopt the TextExpander SDK for, say, Mail or Safari. They certainly don't have a habit of integrating third-party libraries, but a custom keyboard can make itself available in any app, including Safari, including Mail, and so you can actually have TextExpander expansion take place within the web browser and within your Mail app, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, I've for the folks out there who have not played with any of the iOS betas, talk about the process of assigning a TextExpander keyboard or switching to a TextExpander keyboard so they kind of know what to expect and how this will integrate in with their workflow.
Sure, absolutely. So keyboards are set up in the Settings app. And so you visit Settings, General Keyboard, and there's an option to add new keyboard. And that option has been there all along. And the array of keyboards that are available in iOS 7 are mostly focused on languages. So, for example, if you wanted to add a German keyboard or a French keyboard or a Malay keyboard or a Japanese keyboard, then you can do that now. And custom keyboards will be in iOS 8, will be yet another option in that space. They appear in their own category called purchased keyboards, and underneath that you'll see TextExpander. If you tap on that, then you'll see the keyboards that we make available. And in our first version, we will have English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. And I'm sure that over time we will add more keyboards. And once you have a keyboard available, let's say that you have multiple keyboards and you're in an app and typing, you'll find that at the bottom of the keyboard next to the space there's a little globe icon. People may be most familiar with that right now for switching between the system keyboard and the emoji keyboard. And so that's pretty common. And if you tap and hold that icon, then you'll be able to switch to any keyboard, and there'll be a little pop-up that shows, and you can pick the keyboard that you want, including the TextExpander keyboard.
So why would I switch to anything else?
Yeah, exactly. Well, why would you switch to anything other than the TextExpander keyboard?
Yes, yeah.
Sure. Well, so to be fair to the system keyboard, they do an awfully good job, and they've been at it for 7 or 8 years, perfecting autocorrect, adding predictive text, etc. And so for long-form typing, the system keyboard is pretty hard to beat. That said, we have pursued our own autocorrect to the best of our ability, and we continue to improve that. We do not have support for predictive text in our first release. Now, mind you, predictive text is new to iOS 8, where you have the little words that appear above the keyboard. So, we're playing catch up a bit in that space. The reason you would want to use the TextExpander keyboard is to have access to your abbreviations anywhere, and you can switch to another keyboard if you find that that's available for long-form typing.
I was being, of course, a little smart about that, but because there have been some very interesting third-party keyboards that have been talked about. They exist over on the Android side. I recall one of them being shown at Macworld this year. But the idea that I can access the power of TextExpander everywhere now, really, it excites me, and it also makes me think, okay, there are certain snippets that now will make a lot more sense for me to create and add to my library, because now I don't have to think about, oh, is the app that I'm in TextExpander enhanced or not? Now it'll just be everywhere.
Sure. Yeah, no, we can understand that. That'd be really exciting. And I suppose another point worth making is that we're not the only custom keyboard in town. And so I think you might be referring to Swipe. I'm pretty sure they were the ones who were debuted at the developer conference. But there's also Flexi and Swift Keys and probably many others that I don't know about. And what we've done for them is that we've updated our TextExpander development kit such that they could add TextExpander support into their keyboard if they so desired. So, you may not choose TextExpander as your keyboard for 100% of the time, or you may choose one of these other keyboards as your keyboard for 100% of the time. And our business is to make sure that you're able to expand your snippets wherever possible.
That's interesting. That gives me two really good options, at least from a TextExpander perspective, that I can have you native, or I can have you as theoretically part of another favorite keyboard or another keyboard that has other features that I might need.
Exactly. I mean, it's obviously going to be up to third-party developers to implement this, but we're hopeful that users will want it enough that they will ask for it, and developers tend to be pretty responsive to their users, or they tend to go out of business.
Yeah, good point. And you all have, I think, a pretty good reputation for having an SDK that is pretty easy to implement in the grand scheme of things. And that's also just another reason that some of these other parties may want to adopt the TextExpander support.
We're hopeful, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how we access TextExpander. Is there anything in particular new to TextExpander Touch 3 for iOS 8 that is brand new and we haven't seen at all before?
The big new thing is the keyboard. But in terms of the keyboard itself, one thing that we've done that we think people will like quite a bit is we've established some clarity around the shift state. And so one of the things that a lot of people have remarked upon is that the system keyboard, with its always capital letters and the fairly subtle changes to the shift key, you don't really know whether you're about to type a lowercase letter or an uppercase letter. And that would be particularly frustrating if you're trying to type in an abbreviation, or specifically a case-sensitive abbreviation that you've set up to be case-sensitive. So our keyboard shows lowercase letters initially, and then when you tap on the shift key, it shows uppercase letters. Or if you hold, you tap caps lock and things like that. There's actually a lot of subtlety to the keyboard. I had a fair amount of respect for it going into this, and I have even more respect for the system keyboard and its subtleties. Having come through this.
Yeah, you suddenly, I'm sure, appreciate the fact that the things that you do on a full-size keyboard you don't really think about, and then when it shrinks down to the iPhone or iPad size, and you have the thing, you don't have an easy access to Command Option Shift. You have to really think about it. There's a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, one thing that I found that was quite surprising, and that we actually do differently, is that the shift lock doesn't apply to the exclamation point and the question mark. So you can have shift lock down, and you'll be typing capital letters, but if you hit comma or period, you're going to be typing comma or period instead of exclamation point or question mark, which doesn't make a lot of sense given the way that shift lock is supposed to work. So that's kind of bizarre. The other thing that I discovered, which is one where much respect, is that if you switch to the numbers keypad, key face rather, and you type an apostrophe, it will switch right back to the letters key face automatically and immediately, because apostrophe is common in contractions, and so almost certainly the next thing that you want to type after an apostrophe is a letter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you can take all sorts of neat things that the keyboard does that you learn that you ought to do too if you're writing a keyboard.
Everybody kind of makes fun at times, sooner or later, of predictive typing, or simply because inevitably you also get some pretty strange and amusing things that happen. But it really is beneficial when you stop and think about it. And I go back to when we first started with the iPhone, especially the iPhone keyboard. I'll give credit to Andy Anako. He was like, just kind of let go, stop worrying about it, and just play with it and try it. And the predictive stuff will help correct your mistakes, at least at first. And it really does to a large degree. Once in a while, it'll give you something that maybe you didn't want, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
Yes, it is. No, much respect to the system keyboard for that.
Greg, let's talk about syncing the TextExpander snippets between your Mac, all your iOS devices, and everything else. That's still there. I still have the option to use iCloud or Dropbox to do that.
Actually, we've only had the option to use Dropbox for quite some time now.
My fault.
We used to have .Mac back. I mean, we've been around that long, and once Yosemite ships and the whole iCloud Drive stuff settles down, it would not surprise me if we were to add that as an option in the future. But to debut with that is not practical, because it wouldn't be something that we could do on the Mac side right away. And we don't want to say, oh, well, just wait. So that would be something that looks like we will layer in later.
And that was my fault. I'm thinking of another Smile product that you.
Oh no, that's fine. And Dropbox has actually worked, works perfectly well for sync for TextExpander, and is what I would recommend for your users.
Great, great, and especially with their more affordable prices now, it's just one more reason to. If you don't have a Dropbox account for anything else, this is a great reason to, because now, like I said earlier, I can think of a number of snippets, things that I use on my iPhone maybe or my iPad that I don't always do as much, or don't think about using a TextExpander snippet as much on the desktop, and now I will have those options. So it gets kind of exciting. All right, so let's get to the question I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask, and that is this a new purchase? Is this an upgrade? Because the upgrades really aren't an option in iOS.
This is a new purchase. It will be our first new purchase since we debuted in August of 2009. And so at this point, we really felt as though we really feel as though we have no choice but to do it this way. However, we also think that we're providing, at least the $4.99 US in value with the advent of the custom keyboard. We're giving something that is new, productivity enhancing, and helpful, we hope.
I would think so. And even if you could do an upgrade, a $4.99 upgrade would be pretty darn reasonable for something like this. I've said it a million times, Greg, that people are probably sick of me saying it, but TextExpander truly is my most used utility. It gets used multiple times every hour, not a day or a week. Every single hour I'm executing a TextExpander snippet. So $4.99 is nothing. I mean, double the price.
Well, I mean, I suppose we could have been clever or unclever, depending on how you want to think about it, and up the price to $9.99 and then knocked it down to $4.99. We're just not really good games players in that way. That's not really our style. And so the easiest way to deal with this that was incredibly straightforward is TextExpander 3 is a new product. It's $4.99. We're going to make it worth your while. We're going to give you something that you didn't have before. And from a practical standpoint, it costs money to do this stuff. We actually have to spend on the engineering, and it doesn't come from nowhere. And so for the price of a cup of fancy coffee, we are going to save you more time than we could before.
And I think, to your credit, when you had the last couple, you didn't have the problems. Apple kind of changed the game on you. There was no additional purchase, no additional thing. You just did the upgrade. You continued to make it work as seamlessly as you possibly could, and I think you deserve a lot of kudos for that, and a $4.99 new purchase happily from anyone that uses this utility.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So we can hope to see it sometime in the iTunes store on launch day or shortly thereafter. And of course, is there a place where folks can go to kind of keep up on the progress of this and where it stands, or is it just keep hitting the Apple Store every so often to see if it's there?
Well, it's a little bit of everything is true, but I think if you're not following TextExpander on Twitter, then that would probably be the smartest thing to do right now, because we'll certainly announce it when we know what's going on. There will be a delay between when we're approved and when we're available for sale. This is true of all apps on the App Store. But we will announce once we've been approved, and we'll probably announce once we've been able to update ourselves for what that's worth. I mean, that depends on which App Store server is in proximity to us, and your mileage may vary. But hopefully once it's approved, the rollout will be relatively quick, as with other apps.
Yeah, we can certainly hope so. All right, so the question that you have to ask every one of your Mac-loving and iOS-loving friends right now: which iPhone did you get?
I know it's sacrilege. I didn't get a new iPhone.
You didn't? You didn't get a new iPhone? I'm shocked.
No. I think Philip got a 6 Plus, but I did not get a new one. I really like my 5S, and I wasn't feeling. I think I love the fingerprint sensor. I 1Password on it. If you haven't got the 1Password folks coming on to talk about the amazing things they're doing in iOS 8, then I strongly recommend you do. And so, just I'm happy with what I've got for now. That doesn't mean that I won't break down in the future. Who knows? But it may be one of those where I have to touch it too. I don't know.
Yeah. I've tried a couple times to resist, and it never lasts long. It's terrible.
I may walk into an Apple store and it may call to me with that siren song of tech purchases. But for the moment, I'm pretty happy.
Well, Greg, it's not often I would say congratulations to anyone on an app that hasn't shipped yet, but because it's you guys, congratulations on having it ready to go before iOS 8 comes out and in there for review, and hopefully it'll be up real soon.
Thank you very much. Fingers crossed for smooth sailing on that. And it's just always a pleasure to speak with you, Chuck.
It's always great to talk to you. I should have done it at the top of the show, and I'll do it now. Folks, in case you are not aware or don't know, Smile is a supporter of MacVoices. They have been my longest running supporter. So Greg is here, not because of that, though, because it is a cool app and I love it. But regardless, Greg, thank you for everything. Thanks to Philip and, of course, to Gene, the former Smile employee. You guys have been great friends, great supporters, and I really appreciate it. So keep up the good work.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And you too.
Last thing, the website where folks can learn all about the great new Smile products and all the great old Smile products is?
Absolutely. It's smilesoftware.com.
Great. Greg, it's good to talk to you. We'll do it again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Folks, TextExpander Touch 3, go get it as soon as it's out. It should be your first iOS 8 purchase. It will be mine, I promise you. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.